So this is our weekly workshop. Today we're going to be covering general CTF challenge solving tips. So we're going to kind of get into the challenges. I think last week Dave went over challenge management, adding, removing, creating challenges from scratch. What the flag's supposed to look like. We have multiple choice flags now. By the way, multiple choice is very handy for doing quizzes, in-class quizzes, really fun. Editing challenges and promoting challenges to get people to come into it. So today we're going to be covering just getting into it and doing some challenges to see what they look like and some tips for getting stuff done quickly. And I think next week Dave's going to be back and he'll be talking about exploring various CTF challenge categories and diving into the category. We're just going to touch on a couple challenges today, but talk about general tips for how to just solve generally. And he's going to get into more details next week. So this is the link to the workshop. If you all want to go out to this short link, vacr.io/weekly workshop. I'll give you a second to do that. You can join that. Let me actually copy that into our chat. That might make it easier, right? There we go. Feel free to do that kind of stuff for me too, guys, if I mess something up. So you can go there, self-register. You'll need to use one of your either Google or Microsoft Azure accounts to log in. And you might see some challenges change from week to week as we add and remove challenges, so don't sweat it. These are just general kind of introductory challenges that we use. When you roll out a CTF, you'll get a lot of these same challenges. So approaching challenges. So if you hadn't used our system before, it's Jeopardy style. So you have categories at the top and then different value points for different difficulty levels. So there's typically easiest to hardest, or easiest to the lowest point, obviously. The challenge name is used. First of all, note always when you're answering a challenge, always look at the category, because that gives you context and scope. So if you're doing a web challenge, you're not going to be doing crypto math, typically anyway. If you're doing networking, you're not going to be doing, focusing on, cross-site scripting and web stuff. So that sets the context. So just be aware of that and reiterate that to your students. Secondly, you want to look at the name of the challenge is typically some type of hint. So kind of get you pointed in the right direction. So you see a number in this first challenge and read me on the second one and voodoo goat. Those are all hints as to the direction you should go within the challenge. And then when you read the challenge description, look carefully. So, Google some of the keywords. If there's a file attachment, the file name is often a hint. The file extension may or may not be there, or may be incorrect, may be misleading. So you'll want to typically open files and try opening it in a text editor, Notepad, or a Linux or Mac text editor, for example, using strings from the command line. And we're going to show some command line examples here in a little bit, but some basic things you want to do to a file to find out what the heck is this thing. Just looking at the file name. If you can't open it and get anything useful out of Notepad, then you got to go through some. The next hoops are typically looking at the contents using various tools, and this we're going to show next. Are any people's names mentioned in the challenge? Something you can Google, famous quotes and things like that. Or if the file name, is the file name itself meaningful? Sometimes the file name is a key. This is famous in like steganography, where you're hiding things inside things. Sometimes the name of the file will be a key to unlock the thing that's inside the file, for example. So keep those kind of things in mind. The flag you submit must match exactly or very closely. So you may need to try different capitalizations, up or lower. Typically, we try to use regular expressions, so we get rid of upper and lower caps sensitivity. But some challenges may have upper lower sensitivity. Typically they'll say if they have some kind of special conditions, but they'll typically be wrapped in this flag bracket wrapper. So most flags will look like this: flag, curly bracket, this is the answer, curly bracket. So you typically the ones that challenges we write, we will accept this is the answer, or flag, this is the answer. with the curly brackets. We'll take either because we're using regular expressions. As a teacher, though, when you're writing these challenges, don't just use a string saying this is the answer, because oftentimes students that do CTFs will put the whole flag curly bracket, and they'll be frustrated because they lost points. So it's better to do regular expressions. Maybe Dave will cover regular expressions a little bit later. We have a knowledge base article on it, I think, and that can help you write those. So you write your answer once, or your regular expression once, it'll capture all the answers you intend. So that's pretty handy when you're writing these things. On solving them, though, Linux and Mac have very useful POSIX command line tools at the command line. For example, you can use the file command to identify different file types, strings to look at if binary files, it'll strip out all the binary and just show you the raw text, as you see over here. We're running the strings on this binary file. It shows you what it's compiled with, and then there's the flag down there. It found a text in this binary file. So strings is really handy for stripping away all the non-human readable junk and just looking at the ASCII strings. grep for filtering and searching for patterns within files, and then things like base64 for encoding and decoding, especially decoding. You'll see secret messages are awfully, and even a lot of web transactions and URLs are done using base64 encoding. It's taking binary data and encoding it to ASCII that can be transported in a URL, for example, or sometimes hidden within files. And then options for using Linux to actually solve challenges. If you don't have Linux, if you're running a Windows, your students are running Windows machines, we really recommend having, getting them access to, or giving them machines that can run virtualization, either VirtualBox or Kali. I'm sorry, VirtualBox or VMware or something, VMware Player, and then they can download one of the VM images and run Kali locally, or use the Linux subsystem, Windows subsystem for Linux, and so they can actually install Linux on Windows directly, and they'll get a Linux terminal and they can run a lot of these commands themselves too. So it's very handy stuff. If anyone has any questions, by the way, just unmute yourself, pipe up. We're going to show some of this stuff real quick. So here's a challenge in the reconnaissance category. This is our CTF we're running over here. So we have typical categories: crypto, networking, reconnaissance, reverse engineering, and see they get harder, higher point values. Web, some really fun web stuff. Sometimes we'll throw some trivia or some sci-fi book trivia stuff in there. But we're going to look at the reconnaissance category, the README challenge, just to show you kind of what this kind of stuff looks like. So README, click on it, 15 points. Can you read me and find the flag? Okay, don't know what this is. Let me go ahead and click it and download it. It downloads. I'm going to go ahead and drop to I'm on a Linux system, so I'm going to drop to the command line. And let's see, I like to look at the last few files, and there's my README file. So readme.txt. So you might bring this up in a text editor like Notepad, or in my case, gedit. So, oh wow, look at this. This is an example of opening a binary file in a text editor. You're not going to get a lot of meaningful data. You might be able to find something or stumble across something, but yeah, good luck with that. So I'm gonna close. I've got a lot of documents open, looks like. So that didn't do me much good. So let's see, the next strategy would be using something like strings. So strings will rip out all that binary data and just show me what's in this README file. And it's so tricky here. Strings, readme.txt, and whoop, a lot of stuff scrolls by. Let me pipe that through like less or head, just head end of the file. Okay, well this is helpful. Actually, it looks like there's a magic number up at the very beginning of the file. Magic number is the first few bytes of a file, whether it's in Linux, Windows, Mac, tells you what type of file type it is. And this is something that Windows does not honor. So if you download this README file in Windows, Windows wouldn't know how to handle this file. In Linux, actually, if I clicked on this file, it would. Can you all hear me? Can you all hear me? Here we go. My microphone cut out. So if you clicked on this file in Linux, it would know what it is because it doesn't look at file extensions. It doesn't care. Windows is very, very reliant on Windows extensions. So it would try to open this thing in Notepad, and you see the gibberish we saw. Linux would actually run this, but now that I know this is a PDF, there's some other ways I could do. I could actually use the file command. File will also look at the magic numbers at the beginning of the file and say, oh, this is a PDF document version 1.5. Okay, that's useful. Some other tools, hex editors, and when Windows, you have a number of hex editors. I think on our presentation, it's, we'll talk about that here in a second. I'll just show a hex editor here. Ghex, I think it's called in my environment, my GUI hex editor. me.txt. I'm just showing you different ways of looking at the same file. What's the file? It's a lowercase txt. Yeah, there it is. Typo. Here's the file in a hex editor. So this just shows the hex data and the ASCII data. If I look at the first few bytes of the magic number, there it is, PDF 15. And these magic numbers are documented. I think there's a Wikipedia page on it we link to here in a second. But these are different ways of saying, oh, this is actually a PDF file. Now, if I wanted to bring this up in a PDF viewer, I could use you could use Adobe, or I'm on Linux, so I'll do Events, I think is my preferred. And now if you're in Windows, you'd actually have to change the file extension to PDF, but I can actually, since I'm in Linux, I'll just go ahead and load it. And there it is. So there's my flag. And we solve this flag, go back over here and say, okay, here's my answer. Submit. And there we go, that's correct. Now we got points for that. Got points, and look at the scoreboard, and I've got a point now. Scoreboard comes up. There we go. So I just solved one challenge. So that's kind of what we would do. And again, in Windows, you would have to rename that README file. readme.pdf to be able to open it. Otherwise, Windows is very dependent on the file extension. Doesn't look at the magic numbers. Getting back to my slides. There's the example of a. So I just did everything in the slides manually, but there's me editing it. There's me using the file command to determine what kind of file it is, using a hex editor to look at the magic numbers. And there's that link to magic numbers. You just go out to Wikipedia and search for magic numbers. This article comes up, very handy. Magic numbers. List of magic numbers. And so in that PDF, we saw 25, 50, 44. So if I search for 25, 50, 44, there's PDF. Here's all the different, here's a PostScript files, EPS files, text files. Zip files are in everything because doc and docx files use zip, but pkzip. So anytime you see pk at the beginning of a file, that's a pkzip file. Exe files, sound files, graphic files. So PNGs, JPEGs, they're all in here. JPEGs and PNGs you should memorize. You'll see these a lot in capture the flag challenges, JPEGs, PNGs, stuff like that, GIFs, stuff like that, IFFs. So very, very common. But that's very powerful. These are very, very powerful tools. And you don't get all these tools built into Windows, so it can be quite obtrusive to try to solve some of these very basic challenges if you don't have the tools available to you. So if you're not running Linux, then just go ahead and run Windows Subsystem for Linux, or just run Kali Linux in a virtual machine. Then you get all kinds of hacking intrusion detection tools too. We have knowledge base articles on this kind of stuff for CTFs for teachers and for students at the kb.uscyberrange.org or virginiacyberrange.org. That's our knowledge base system. And a lot of really good YouTube videos out here on our YouTube channel. Maureen is, I can charge that, and she keeps all our content current. I think this video is going to end up out there. And if you ever have any help, if you need any help writing or administering your CTF, you can always just send us a ticket at support@virginiacyberrange.org. And I think that's it, Maureen. Yeah, that's it. All right.